can play the game while you listen.
What's going on here?
But this ragtag crew of adventurers is covering the problems of the average player.
Where should I begin?
Discussing the home brews, modules, and the latest content for all things D&D.
What in God's holy name are you blathering about?
It's Chef Bolg and the Pirate Captain's recipes for everything.
What you're feeling is so normal and perfectly natural.
With your host, the Pirate Captain.
Everybody loves me, and I don't know why. I'm an asshole. I really am. The Pirate Captain is a dick.
Chef Bolg.
Let me take a couple steps back so I can, really get this point across.
It's bullshit!
And Loc the Bard.
Instead of making a deal with Cthulhu or, a greater devil, you found an imp who was willing to give you dark vision in exchange for a gallon of blood.
With a little mayhem, mischief, and a bit of bardic charisma, it's time for the show.
Yarr, that'd be right. It is time for another show. And another F you to me. I keep finding them. I'm not going to explain this one. You just have to go listen to previous shows and figure out where this week's F you to me is at.
No idea what you're talking about.
Yeah, they're mostly from you. That is true. They are mostly from you. Well, you might have noticed that there is a certain green friend of ours that is missing today. He is absolutely sick, and he's like, I can phone it in. It's like, not like that, you can't, bud. Sorry, not today. We are Chef Bolg and the Pirate Captain's recipes for everything. I am the titular Pirate Captain, but not today. It's my bestest buddy Bolg. He is out sick. So unfortunately, I have to deal with Loc the Bard. And also a returning face, unfortunately.
Fortunately. The word you mean is fortunately.
I'm pretty sure it's unfortunately. It says so right here in the script. Unfortunately. All right? Unlike you, I still can't read. Pirates don't read. Oh. But, yeah. Bolg is out sick today, so we are doing this episode a little differently. We will not be having him. And I do have a returning face. We sent him out to go find the +3 buckler that I was loaned to return to the shopkeeper so many months ago. And now Mr. Producer is back.
I finally found that stupid buckler.
I told you.
And your spell has ended.
I left that thing with specific instructions of where to find it. I sent it to you. I don't know why it took you forever to find it.
You know all the time traveling BS I had to deal with to get that buckler back?
We don't do it. Don't tell people about our plot details, and they'll know where the story's going. But it is Chef Bolg and the Pirate Captain's recipes for everything. I am, like I said, the titular Pirate Captain. Don't forget to go find us on Facebook. It's Chef Bolg and the Pirate Captain's recipes for everything. We always are sharing memes. We're a little bit behind. I am the guy that runs it all, but that's going to be somebody else's job here soon. We also have our YouTube channel. Pretty much anywhere that you can find social media, Chef Bolg and the Pirate Captains. It's a very weird name. Come join us. Know what's going on. We've got some big stuff coming up, especially here in the new year. Our first guest of the new year, you're not going to want to miss. I don't want to let in who they are, but I'm going to tell you it is a D&D related comic book. You don't want to miss that. Let's see. We got the website going up, too. Mr. Producer has, in his time, and since he's been back, I guess you can't really slow this dude down.
While he was trapped in the past.
Yeah. He's been writing code.
In the days before social media, he learned to do web design.
It was amazing because he shows me all his script that he wrote down, that he had a piece of tan leather, and there it is. It's all written out in perfect script. I thought I found a mistake in one of his code. I was like, man, this right here, this is going to set you back by about a year.
Have you ever tried chiseling code? That's a lot less fun.
Hey, well, I can't help you there, but we will. The website is up and going. My side's not done officially because I've been like capped trying to get some stuff done. I had something planned for us today for a fun thing, and then Bolg got sick, so I was like, well, I guess we're not doing that. So all my hard work this week.
It's a busy time of year too.
So. Are we going to start that next episode or the following?
We probably start it next episode. It'll be something fun that we can do. It'll be cool. It's mainly for YouTube. A lot of it's really, it's really nothing special, but it's going to be for YouTube. That's what it is. If you guys, sometimes you want to be able to listen to the episodes. You just want to put it on the background and let a chain run through. Well, there is an entire playlist for us on YouTube. So it starts with probably the latest episode and it just kind of like scrolls back. So you may have to adjust where you start your playlist.
New episodes, old episodes.
There are going to be some shorts too. Yeah,
There's going to be some shorts. Yeah.
Are they in order, starting at episode 10?
I don't think it starts at episode 10. I think it starts at like 11.
Oh.
Yeah. So like we started it when we started what we called season 2 of this podcast, which is when we started using the fancy setup, and things got a lot clearer. And so that was season 2. And then season 3 was the mark of the new intro when we had when my buddy.
Oh, so we've started season 3.
We have started season 3.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Technically, we're in season 3. I know it doesn't mean a whole lot. It's not like we're an adventure podcast that tells you grand adventures,
Was the religion episode the start of season 3?
No. Whenever the new intro, which was, I think we've used it for 4 episodes now.
You'd have to look on.
Yeah, I'm not going to
look on the season listing.
Been a little busy.
I don't know.
On the Anchor, Spotify, or
wherever you're listening to this podcast.
Yeah, Apple, iTunes, Amazon.
Yeah,
wherever you're listening.
We'll get into the shop talk later. That's all the stuff that people don't really need to know about us. But it is. It's New Year's. Yeah. All right. Obviously, it's New Year's Eve when this is being recorded, and everybody's already making out their, I'm going to do this in the upcoming year, and we all know better that 90% of us will fail. Trust me, I've been there. I said, I'm going to drink more. I just could not hold myself to that test this year. Alcohol got expensive. Yeah, recession-proof my ass. But I want to talk about this episode where things we'd like to see coming forward into D&D. And it doesn't have to be with D&D 6th edition, which I'm glad that I'm winning that argument and people are coming to see it my way on the internet. But
one D&D is a dumb name.
It really is. Like, I don't know why you would like one D&D. Like, the Xbox One isn't really doing that great. But I want to see, I want to talk about things that we would like to see, not only just in 6th edition, but stuff that I'd love to see in 5th edition, things like areas that I'd love to see them explore and stuff like that.
Are they going to continue putting out 5th edition content?
It's hard. They're saying that all the new content will be backwards compatible. Although if you look in the playtest, there's
you can.
Things technically 4th edition and 3rd edition can be converted to 5th edition rules. There are rules out there if you look them up. So technically, some of those could be backwards compatible with the air quotes. But yeah, I suspect they're saying this because they still have 3 or 4 books that are going to be coming out between now and when 6th edition releases in 2024. And they still want you to buy the new books that are coming out instead of just, hey, this is going to be useless in a year. And
I'll be honest,
right.
I don't want it to go back. Like, here's my first thing I'd like to see in this new year. Don't make it backwards compatible. Just make it a new edition. I like, things have to age out. We've seen it before. We're in 5th edition, obviously. So let's just go ahead and just like age it out. If 5th edition is like oversaturated itself. Like, there's so many things in 5th edition that it's had to go back in and it's retconned its original stuff. And it's rather annoying that it's done that.
But there's been a lot of the arguments even with 5th edition where people wanted to play Dark Sun, for example. And 5th edition never released a Dark Sun campaign setting for 5th edition. And their argument even then was, if you want to play Dark Sun in 5th edition, you can take the old rules for Dark Sun and do the conversions and play 5th edition. So I believe that's what we're going to see for a lot of this quote-unquote backwards compatibility, because some of the stuff they're changing is not going to be... if you've got a subclass in one of these books, it's not going to fit the new subclass structure with, where they're moving what level you get your subclasses. They're moving how many subclass features you get across the course of a 20 level.
# Warlocks only for Eldritch Blast.
Yeah.
Nobody? Screw you guys. I'm with you on that. I would rather you do the time old tale of homebrewing.
Yeah.
That's where your stuff needs to go into. So I don't want to see you guys do anything that... I don't want to see you guys do anything that requires us to keep buying 5th edition books if we're already into this new edition. And I think that's kind of rude and a slap in the face to your players. If you want to make stuff, let D&D Beyond have like a creators guild or something like in there, kind of like they already had before D&D bought them out, to where you can like post your homebrew stuff. That's fine with me. But
yeah,
don't.
they've said that's the DM's Guild and those kind of things are not going away. They're still going to have an OGL. They're still going to have, so those third party and homebrew stuff will still be part of the long-term plans for D&D. Despite what the fearmongers are telling you, D&D has officially said those will still be part of their plans for the future.
Yeah, you know what? My dad said my dog was still alive for a long time, and come to find out, he died 3 years before. So,
but, the other thing with backwards compatibility too, though, like there's a power creep with D&D. Even with 5th edition, like you add in the Tasha's or the latest, greatest books.
Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica was like pretty busted because like a lot of people, and against my better judgment, were given magic at the start of a campaign with no magic abilities just because they were joined the right guild. So yeah, there's a massive power creep.
So if you take a character from Tasha's and you run them through like the Lost Mines of Fandover, the first adventure that came out, they're gonna walk through that like it's nothing because the just pure power creep over the years. So I'm sure that's going to be the same is going to be true with a 6th edition character is probably going to have even more power creep because like what they've released already, every character gets a feat as part of their background. Not just variant humans, but every single character will start with a feat.
I think it's kind of balanced itself out because now they've moved all the major features of your class to 3rd level.
Yeah.
So that right there is worth it to me. Like if I can make that like trade off, like have a feat. I would rather. Okay, ready? Point number 2. Something I'd like to see more in D&D in the future. I'd like to see more classes based off doing things with features than just what their class already learns. Something that makes them more unique that you're going to take, because everybody, if I have a room full of fighters, we're all the same, right? We're going to be all the same minus, whatever archetype we take, versus if we build off features, it makes me more unique. I may take a feature that increases my ability to dual wield while you take one that works to your shield, and Mr. Producer takes one that works better with bows.
Yeah.
Now I have 3 different types of fighters. I would rather see D&D build off features than off classes.
With what we're seeing in the Unearthed Arcanas, the first 3 that have come out already, with the fighting styles that we've seen for that the Rangers getting, and with the Holy Orders that the Clerics getting, where you're making path decisions about what your build will look like that makes you different than all the other cleric.
So there are more customization options.
Yeah, like as a cleric at 2nd level in the playtest right now, you get what they call a Holy Order, which if you take the one Holy Order, it gives you the martial weapons and heavy armor. If you take another Holy Order, it gives you an extra cantrip, and you can refresh your channel divinity in a short rest instead of a long rest.
So
you're a more martial cleric versus a more magical cleric.
Magical.
Magical. But so that you've got these dividing point, and that's before you even get to your subclass. Because in the new, you're no longer getting your subclass at 1st level for a cleric. They now get their subclass at 3rd level, because that's from what they said on their little videos that they've hosted for D&D Beyond, is that all of the classes will get their subclass at 3rd level, so they all get them at the same point.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which I think is a good idea because it balances the classes between each other a little more. And if they do things right, it should help with because you 1-level dip into cleric or into warlock is a much more powerful dip than say a 1-level dip in wizard. I
don't think you should be able to dip into warlock. I'm not rehashing that old. That's one of my things. Nobody gets to dip into warlock.
Yeah, because magical dark vision's too powerful.
It's too powerful. Shut up. No one asked you. You and your stupid imps. I tell you what, something else I don't want to. Here's something I don't like. Things I've said 2 things that I want to see coming into this D&D, and something. And when you were talking about that, it made me think of something I don't want to see in D&D. I don't want to see the ability that they brought out in Tasha's, where you could change your stuff at a whim for your class as you kind of go through. I don't want to see you made it all the way to 3rd level as a forge cleric, and then at 4th level you're like, I'm going to be a life cleric now. I want to get rid of that feature, because that feature means that you have not thought out your class or thought out what you wanted to do. I would rather you be a whole new character than ruin a character that probably your friends may love. You may not love it, but trust me, there are times that we've all had characters that we don't personally like, but people love it. You know, they love the concept behind it or something like that. I just want to see that player's choice matters. Like what you start with is matters. So
some permanence.
Yeah, because like all you're saying is you have a pretty much a permanent redo button, and like, oops, I didn't like that. I'm gonna go do this, and it's like, go play test that somewhere else or do something there.
And that may be part of the moving everything to third level. Is that, you know, you've thought about it more, you spent more time developing before making that choice. Because you make that choice at first level, you make the choice to be an anti-undead paladin, and it turns out the campaign has no undead in it. You know, you may want to be a, you know, more martial paladin or a more, you know, fire-based paladin, whatever.
Yeah, I don't think you have to have your whole character planned out from level 1.
I don't. I usually have an idea of where I want my characters to go. Like, if I start off with something, and I've said this in previous episodes, I usually work backwards from a concept.
Mm-hmm.
So I start off with where I want the end game to be. So how do I get to the end game?
Okay, that's where we differ, because I come with a character, and where is this character going to go today?
You're like, oh, Fred the Farmer. Is it Fred the Farmer?
Ron the Farmer.
Ron the Farmer.
Ron the Farmer.
Ron the Farmer. I miss Andy. I miss. We had to. They explained the Ron the Farmer thing real quick. Let's just take a sidestep. Ron the Farmer was a friend of ours named Andy. Big, massive dude, works on monster trucks. Legitimately, that's his job. Would come and play D&D with us, and he wanted to make a character that was just kind of like a basic, kind of showed up.
Part of it was because of what his stats rolled out as. He rolled out with like 6 11s, like the most balanced, but nothing overpowered, most average, but still usable. Stats. And then on top of that, so he decided to play the most basic champion fighter you ever heard of, and took what was the folk hero background?
Yeah. Something like that. Yeah, he was very like, if you'd have seen him walking through, you would have think, oh, that guy's just a farmer. What you would not have known is that guy fought a dragon. Yeah. Like, he was just a very basic dude. He was awesome. It was Ron the Farmer.
Yeah.
So that explains Ron the Farmer.
And it also happened that in that same campaign, we had an Aarakocra that looked like a chicken and a Minotaur who looked like a bull.
That's what a Minotaur.
So we had a farmer and his farm animals.
E-I-E-I-O.
As part of the
I
party.
hate you so much. You get me to say dumb things.
Yeah.
Oh,
Write down that timestamp.
Don't write down anything. Don't give him the benefit of the doubt on this one. But Ron the Farmer was great. I'd like to see like the average character of him. Like, he was really like the average Joe. And it worked out for him.
And that's one of the things, the anti-power gamer. He was, like I said, absolutely average. He had no high stat. He had no special magic ability stuff when he started out. He had the most basic class. He was human with the most basic. I don't think he took variant. I think he took standard human.
And that's probably how he got the plus 11s too.
So he didn't have a feat. So he took the standard human. So he had no feats, he had no special, ability as a level 1 fighter, and the party decided, by the time towards the end of the campaign, we went all 20 levels that campaign, and after 20th level, they decided an opportunity came for one of them to step into the divine realm, and so they pushed. Ron didn't want to step into it, but the party pushed him.
Sometimes you have greatness thrust upon you.
Yeah. So Ron the Farmer joined the pantheon of the Ascended, and
yeah, that's right. So we pray to Ron the Farmer here. It's a pretty good god. He's the god of averageness. Yeah. Something that you just don't have to worry about. I don't know. That's something I would actually like to see too coming in. I'd like to see more. I'd like to see players. Not so many stat rolls. I'd like to see more of the basic array. I want to see players do more with less. And I want them to, and when I say this is kind of like a two-parter. I want them to quit making intelligence a dumb stat.
Yeah.
That is the absolute worst. I'm tired of seeing it. I'm tired of everybody thinking that just because I have a 6 intelligence means I'm a dumbass.
Yeah, and that's part of the game design too, because there's so little need for non-wizards to have a high intelligence that it makes sense for non-wizards to use it as the dump stat when you're making it, and that's bad game design. There should be other stuff in there. You know, if you're too dumb, maybe you can't read. Maybe you shouldn't be able to count your own money, or
maybe pick locks as a rogue or something like that. Like these are things that I think need to be addressed. Like I still like the idea of turning sorcerers into Constitution base, and like their spell slots are based off their hit points. I thought that was like probably, and that's another thing I'd like to see moving forward. But with wizards being the only guys that have to use intelligence, everybody just throws it in, and then you end up having a party full of dumbasses that, it's fun for like the first few sessions, and then afterwards,
it's just like having an evil character in the party. One is good; they can make the party fun. An entire party full of evil asshole murder hobos, not so fun.
So pretty much every party ever.
Wow.
Yeah, it's every party ever.
Nah, you got to have at least. You gotta have
Look
at
at
least
that
the
bandit
one
over
paladin,
there who hasn't stolen anything. Let's go kick his ass.
Yeah, you gotta have at least one.
Look at that child over there who's looking at me evilly. Let's go kick its ass.
You have to have some moral background to push the plot forward of a heroic campaign. I mean, otherwise you could become a bunch of street thugs and just go around murder hoboing.
That nun looked at me funny. Let's go beat her up. Yeah, it's pretty much every party ever.
No.
We're going to do it for experience and gold. I don't know what the nun or the orphan had, but that bandit, he's probably worth what? I think bandit's a half CR. So you get like nothing for it.
And speaking of CR, that's what I'd like to see fixed in the future.
Yeah.
Is an encounter balance system that takes more into account. Because the CR system, as soon as you factor in magic items, or the party size of something other than 4, or
I mean, you were talking at lunch how they dumbed D&D down. Now you want them to make it harder again?
Well, it would make it easier for the DM if you had a party of 4 at level 4, and you could just send them up against 4 CR4 creatures and not have to worry, is this too easy or too tough? And no, because the math is done for you already, and that would make it much easier to plan encounters. Because then you go into one of these websites or into D&D Beyond, you filter by the CR you want, and boom, there you go. You've got a nice and easy encounter that your players aren't going to walk over or immediately die.
So, I mean...
But the CR system, it is designed for a party of 4, and like... It's like 4 level 1s should be able to take on a CR1 at level 1.
But that math doesn't seem like it even adds up now.
Yeah. And that's the thing. As soon as you factor in the first magic item,
so what if we added like a table that would allow you to not only scale the CR, but maybe even scale health and stuff like that? So let's say... if you're a CR1, but you're fighting 10th level, you go down the table, you read across, okay, hey, here's some health, multiply this times their health, this add this to their armor, this, and give them this or something like that. I think that would actually be really cool to kind of like...
How dare you add more math back into this game?
I'll do what I please.
And the CR system kind of has a chart where you could take either their health or their damage. There are charts like that where you could find what the right CR is.
Yeah, but is it in the book?
It doesn't calculate. It only calculates that one step. So you have the CR for health, but not the CR for damage output, or not for special ability, or not that doesn't take into account your party's magic items.
So that's what I'm saying. If you add that table, like magic items, I'd like to see more. We'll get into that here in a second. I got to remind myself on that one. But with CR and stuff like that, let's add that into a table, like at the beginning of the monster manual. Hey, when you are going to encounter parties of this is a rough guide to help you increase difficulty, so that way you're not getting your monsters aren't getting their ass curb stomped when 8 people walk into a party or walk into a dungeon.
Yeah, I use an app to track initiative, and every time I put in the encounter that my party's fighting against after like level 3. it gives me a warning saying that, oh, this is a deadly encounter. Your people can't, there's no way they can stand up to the, and half the time the party's still walking over that encounter because the CR system is so off and so broken. And the higher you go in levels, the worse it gets. In the early levels, it's not great, but it at least makes some kind of sense.
Yeah, but even in the end,
the higher level you get, the worse it gets.
Yeah, because some of the it doesn't. What's the CR cap out at? Like 10, right?
Oh no, there's like a CR 30 dragon in one of the.
Yeah, okay, but in the basic monster manual, like what's it cap out at? I think it's not high.
No,
right?
there are some stuff that like the.
So there's no actually no
and those kind of things that are up.
So
like
there's
CR
no
20.
proper scaling, it seems, then into the CR.
Well, and part of it also, what it doesn't take into account is things like action economy. A party of 8 versus a party of 4. You can't just double the amount of bad guys.
But you can give the boss maybe an extra action,
right?
And
that's things you have to, that CR doesn't take into account those things. Just because the number of actions a party of 8 has is you're going to need more filler bad guys to keep the action economy balanced than you would for a party of 4. And like I said, it's not a straight doubling.
Yeah, it
doesn't really work that way.
So, no, I'm sorry, man.
Yeah, well, and that's something else. 4th edition had a minion mechanic to help with that, where you throw out these 1 hit point minions where you don't have to track their health or worry about them, but they're there to attack.
They may not do a lot, but they do enough to make you notice.
But they add stuff back into the action economy where instead of the dragon who's getting his 3 attacks per turn, versus a party of 8 who has 8 bonus actions, 8 attack actions, 8 movements, and 8 reactions.
Yeah, those numbers add up fast.
Yeah.
Yeah. If they all hit the dragon, that dragon may not last around.
So maybe and this is just trying to play devil's advocate a little bit. Maybe add more resistance to things, like maybe half damage. Like just because you can hit it, even with a magical weapon, it does 24 damage. Cool. Me behind the DM scream, 10 damage. Or something like, half it or whatever it is. Not that I can do math, but just something to help you out because it does. I think this, and before I get into what now, I'm going to have to write this down too because now I have another point that I'd like to see in the future. But this one, I think I'd like to see more resistance to lesser things like psychic damage. Like, why is it that everything resists poisons? Like, why is it that everything resists the same stuff? Like, there's a lot of stuff that just shouldn't resist poison, but it does for some reason. But I'd like to see something that, more like psionics. Why psionics is like the one damage that just goes through everything. You're telling me that I think Mind Flayer is a resistance to psychic damage, but you're telling me that some of these like mental creatures like the Beholder is not going to be resistance to psychic damage?
Yeah, and
it doesn't make sense. I want to see them balance out some of the monsters.
I'd also like to see more vulnerabilities too.
Vulnerabilities would be awesome.
Yeah, because a lot of the vulnerabilities have gone away in 5th, what is it? There's only 2 creatures, like shadows and one other one, that are vulnerable to radiant damage, whereas all undead type things used to be vulnerable to radiant damage in old, if every creature, if they took their 300 creatures in the monster manual, there's 30 damage types, and they had 10 of each, where they were, resistant to, one each and vulnerable to something where, and you had to figure that out for every creature. I think that would be more entertaining and lead to more strategic, gameplay.
It might actually even help balance out the game with, everybody wanting to play bards.
Well, and it also things like the barbarian, who's, where they're resistant to everything.
I'd like to see, something
fighting barbarian dragons.
Oh man, that would be hilarious.
A dragon that rages.
That's every dragon.
Yeah.
Or just my wife, but.
Exactly. Why can't a dragon rage like a barbarian and take half damage while it's raging?
It'd be something cool. I'd like to see some diversity in those monsters when it comes to that, like adding things to them, because with psionics, like I said, being the only thing that nobody's like really resistant. There are creatures that are resistant to psionics and stuff like that, but then everybody's out there. You have a bunch of bards that are casting vicious mockery because they know they're going to do half damage. But honestly, I would be fine if you took psionics away as like a type of attack damage.
Well, and they didn't do much with the psychic and psionics in 5th edition.
In the early game, but now you have like a couple classes that
there's a couple that, but they're even those they're very small uses. That you don't have like the actual psionicist, and where there's a whole spell type for psionic magic and that kind of stuff. It's they reskin a wizard spell and say, hey, this is done with using his psychic power to, like the Githyanki has Mage Hand. But in the flavor text, that Mage Hand is done via psionics rather than arcane.
Right. But
it's the same.
I just I don't mind psionic as a damage. It's cool. I think it's there. But like I said, when you're trying to, especially as a DM, this is me coming at it from the DM side of it. You have players. You have like a party of 3 bards because there's always a freaking bard or 2. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's vicious mockery. So they're the ones that are eating through your health because you have no defense against it. You may be able to defend against magical items, or you have resistance to bludgeoning or poison and all these other stuff, but you don't have it when it's to this major damage type that people know, because vicious mockery is a favored spell. Like I guarantee if you went in and asked one of the top cantrips out there, it is vicious mockery.
Well, and I think part of it also should be they need to do something. And hopefully they haven't released the Marshall playtest yet. Oh, and there's some rumors that there's going to be some good stuff in there. But the effects of melee weapons have gotten so underwhelming in standard D&D that if you can get a damage-dealing cantrip, like whether it's from your high elf and you got it because you're the high elf or whatever, on a lot of your attacks, it makes more sense to use that cantrip than it would a melee weapon. I think that if they fixed melee weapons to where the damage math were somewhat close, because that's the you're stabbing with a rogue stabbing with a dagger that's not backstab at first level does the same damage as a rogue stabbing with a dagger that's not backstab at 10th level, but that same rogue, if he somehow picked up
booming
Firebolt
blade or something,
booming blade or whatever, that has scaled because cantrips scale every 4 or 5 levels.
So I have something to say with that. Like, I would like to see something kind of like you had the crit deck, right? Remember, you draw a crit deck depending upon whatever weapon you were using, whether it be magic, ranged, slashing, bludgeoning, or piercing. I'd like to see some benefits out of that. Not always on the critical hit either.
Yeah.
Like those, obviously you had to have a critical hit to use one of those features. Like if you used a magic attack, you had a chance to send somebody to another dimension. Or if you had a slashing effect,
that goes back to the vulnerabilities thing.
But it's not only the vulnerabilities and stuff like that, but this is on your general attacks.
In current edition, there's really no difference between slashing, piercing, or bludgeoning. Because if the creatures that are either resistant are going to be resistant to all 3, and there's no real creatures out there who are vulnerable to just one. There may be one, but if they're vulnerable to one of those 3.
But that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So now listen. So here's what I'd like to see, and this I think would be great. So every time you attack, you have, depending upon your level, all right, if you're at level 1, 20 levels, so you 5%, right? We'll call it that. 5 times 20 is 100, okay? So every level, not only when you make an attack, you take a D100, and you have a 5% chance per level to add a bonus to that attack, all right? If something can bleed, it bleeds with slashing attacks. Piercing, you have a chance to reduce its you have a chance to negate its armor on your next. Something to make the melee attacks feel good. Bludgeoning, you make it to where there's a minus to its AC until your next turn. So now your friends have a chance to, and it encourages more friendly gameplay. So now you want somebody to have a bludgeoning weapon, somebody to have a slashing weapon, somebody to have a piercing weapon to help out, and kind of let magic alone, because magic, like you're saying, magic already does what it's got to do.
Yeah.
We don't need anything else. But to these melee weapons, to the bows. Not, and I say melee, but I just mean martial weapons. Let's just call it that. So the martial weapons, shooting with the bow or something like that. These are benefits that'll make it to where you want to do things with these weapons. Get rid of some of the also magic resistance to things like, oh, it can only be damaged with magic. If it's not a ghost or something like crazy like that, it doesn't need magic resistance.
Yeah.
All right. Or non-magic resistance. Like, let things be hurt by stuff. So it boils back into that.
Yeah. And like if you have a construct that's resistant to piercing, but vulnerable to bludgeoning. Or, something where...
And then you get a bonus to that percent chance, even... So let's say you're fighting a golem at level, let's say 4.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so you have a 20% chance, all right, to do your normal attack with it, right? Or to add that effect to your attack. That percent chance might be a bad one. 5 may be bad, maybe 2.5. But anyway, basic math, we're going to keep it simple. So you had 4, you have 20% chance to add to the bludgeoning, slashing, piercing bow feature, right? But you're vulnerable to bludgeoning damage. Let's double that percent. So now you have a 40% chance to reduce that AC against this creature. Now, this also means that we need to bring it back a little bit on the character side, that characters can only be good at so many weapons. You can't just be a barbarian and walking around and I have like 8 different weapons I can pick up at any time. I'm not calling anyone out, especially since he's not here, but that's the idea.
Yeah, and that was something with the older editions. You got proficiency in longsword. You did not get proficiency in all martial weapons or even all swords. You got you had 5 proficiency slots by the time you were done or whatever. And if you doubled, you used 2 proficiencies in a single weapon, you became a specialist in that weapon.
So that would be something cool to bring back, and it could benefit this feature. I'm telling you, this right here would make... martial weapons fun to use, and they are somewhat fun to use, especially when you're like cleaving through a giant group of people as a barbarian. You're backstabbing things with the rogues. I still think that they need to fix the fist damage, like the melee damage of like using your fist to punch is so bad. Like it's a D3 plus your strength modifier at all levels.
Well, if you're not a monk and you don't have the tavern brawler, it's just your strength modifier.
Yeah, and that to me is dumb. That tells me that like I just feel like being a brawler of some sort, like
you're doing the same damage whether you're punching them with your fist or with steel gauntlets.
Right? Yeah. And that to me is dumb. Like if you're wearing plate armor, you probably have gauntlets on. That's gonna hurt a little bit more than if you were. So that was gonna be something in there.
Well, and there's a lot of little things like, a dagger. There's certain situations where a dagger, should do more damage. If you're slitting throats while somebody's sleeping, that's an instantly fatal, type of thing. There's certain things. If fighting somebody with a knife, maybe get some kind of a bleed damage effect or some kind, where
Close
if it's a slashing or a piercing weapon, where the character's going to have effects to deal with. Whereas bludgeoning, they get bruising or something,
Something that makes it there.
Yeah, I get it. If they added something like that in the future, that I could go for that. I don't think they will. I don't think the martial stuff is going to go quite that far.
But why not?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't it go that far when you could actually have something that would make it fun? Because like you're saying, and I've seen it before too, as you get in later classes, some people will take that stupid feat that I hate, that magic initiate feat, and then I got a cantrip now that they'll all go do Eldritch Blast, and it slaps for a little while because frick, what is it like? It's probably
a D10. A
D10 4 times.
Yeah, a D10 at first level that scales to 2D10 at 5th level that scales. Yeah, comparing that to your D10 longsword. That's always going to be. Oh yeah, if you are a martial class who gets extra attacks, you may get 3 or 4 attacks with that. But
but that's a balancing issue too, because then you get some martial classes that don't get extra attack.
Well, and that's the other thing. Like rogues and those kind of classes that aren't technically martial classes, they get their sneak attack damage, but in those situations where they're not in a sneak attack possibility. Although they're making it super easy to get that sneak attack these days.
Yeah. I tell you something I'd like to see getting rid of moving forward. I want to see less pointless rolls.
Yeah.
Like you were talking about how the rogue that slit somebody's throat at night, oh, well, you got to roll to beat their AC. They're sleeping at night. Sometimes you don't need that. And this may be honestly just a DM player type deal. So if you're a DM out there, do this as your New Year's resolution and make it to where you're doing less pointless rolls. Sometimes let those things happen. It's going to entertain you.
And that was part of the argument with the, natural 1 always fails and natural 20 always succeeds that they tested in the first section, was that if there is no possibility of failing, why are you rolling? If there's no possibility of succeeding, why are you rolling? You don't need to roll in those situations. If it is completely impossible, why are you having them roll?
Yeah. And so get rid of them. Like pointless rolls, and it's not even.
I think some of the fans love rolling because they objected to the 1 always passing, 20 always failing.
I mean, because nowhere actually in the book right now does it say that a natural 1 or a natural 20 is a guarantee of anything.
Yeah.
20 is the crit, but a natural 1 does not actually exist in the 5e rulebook from the player's handbook. So why do we do it? So I just want to see more, like, and it's going to benefit the role players versus the ones that are there for the numbers and stuff like that, because they will do, they'll be able to role play out the scenario a little bit better. But I like give players sometimes the benefit of the doubt. Let them have these cool moments. Sometimes it's what they're building these characters for. And if you take these moments from them because, they scuffed the roll and now the dude's awake and now the whole part of the camp knows that they're there trying to kill him. Now, I will say, and I will give this the benefit of the doubt for the DMs to help kind of mitigate this. If it's player-on-player kind of action like that, kind of make them roll for it against each other, kind of like there's like a PvP modifier essentially. Yeah. But if it's me attacking an NPC and I say, hey, this guy is asleep, I've already snuck through the camp, I rolled a sneak in the camp, I'll give you that because, hey, look, you could step on some, there could be a lot of stuff that causes a thing. But when you get up to the guy that you're there to kill, you've already snuck through the camp. Why do I need to roll to sneak attack again? So
and in my games, I would not make you roll that attack.
So I just want to see less pointless rolls moving forward into this new game, into the new year.
But there, like I said, there are certain people out there, I guess, who are big believers in that the roll is what they're there for. They like rolling dice, maybe.
In that favor, then I want you to do the more Dan Harmon style of playing, where it's only one person that rolls, and then everybody, you just explain what your actions are, and the DM kind of rolls for you.
I don't like the insight check roll that
I don't like passive perception.
Yeah, where it's is this person lying? Oh, lie detector, insight. Oh. Since when is your character the human lie detector?
What are you? You got the lasso of truth with you in Wonder Woman? I'm with you on that. Insight's a terrible thing because it's a person you just met, and they could be the world's best liar. And I would honestly say that would end up ruining everything. Like if you're going to come in and you're just honestly doing the insight checks, and this guy's a known liar, like. Let's say you're going in to talk to the Thieves Guild. Most likely those guys can lie. So if you're like, oh, well, I'm going to, like, if you cast Zone of Truth, well, you're a dick. I'm just going to throw that one out there.
Now, if you're the DM and you're, okay, the guy you're interviewing, he's sweating profusely. His fingers are tapping. His foot is, he's jittery. You shouldn't need an inside check. Okay, this guy's nervous. There's something going on.
Well, maybe he's just naturally nervous.
Exactly. But an insight check doesn't change that. A good DM will have described that to you, and you as the person playing that character should be able to go, okay.
I just want to pause on that one real quick. If you're not doing that, then you're a terrible DM. I'm about to say Bulk. Loc said it. Anybody who doesn't describe their characters that are lying, you're a bad DM. Coming from Loc the Bard.
I'll own that. Yeah. If you're not it's a role playing game and relying on it's a role ROLE, not ROLL.
I like that.
It's not about the roll of the dice to figure out if this person's lying or not. You should be able, the DM should be giving clues to the players that yes, this person is lying. Yes, this person is this is a sleazy merchant who's got, maybe play into the stereotype. He's got the slicked back hair and a golden tooth, or.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. There are some kind of busted roles, and insight definitely is one of them. The passive perception I hate.
Yeah, passive perception makes most of the traps in the DMG, if you actually followed the rules. Yeah,
they're useless because your natural. Most people's passive perception is usually up because guess what? Wisdom's not a dump stat, and everybody seems to want to take it. Guess what? Modifies your passive perception. Your wisdom.
You get one player with an expertise in perception. And all of a sudden, the passive perception, they'll notice every tripwire,
Yeah. Here's what I want to see. Something else, and I've talked about this in previous episodes, and since we're talking about skill checks, I want to see more skills. I want to see a variation of skills again to where you don't have somebody that's just kind of like, I'm good at Arcana, so I'm good at everything. Or I'm good at Insightfulness, so now apparently I'm Wonder Woman's lasso. I want to see people that actually have to vary out to make, and yet again, it comes back to that. I want to see more unique characters. I have a rogue that he's really good at finding traps, but he's not so good at sneaking. So he's, lean in towards that. That's what I would like to see. Versus,
you split the sleight of hand back to, lock picking, pickpockets, and and palming.
Do a little branch, so you can be good at sleight of hand, but you're going to be better at one or the other. Like you can pick it, okay, I put 2 points in here, and every 2 points is worth 1 point.
Do like a sub-skill chart, like a tree of some kind.
Yeah, because it would give more unique players. Like it's going to build more fun classes. There's a guy on our YouTube. And I love this guy. He actually goes in and he listens to the whole episode. Like, I am very impressed that he actually listens to the whole episode.
Before ripping us apart.
Yeah, before ripping us apart. But I appreciate that he rips us apart because it gives us really good content and stuff that we talk about all the time. And I'm going to pull his name up right here. I didn't have it because I didn't think I was going to get to it in this episode. But he's made a comment on that before about...
and I think with the simplification of D&D, they have... that was one of the things where in older
Cosmic
editions,
K13 is his name.
Yeah, in the older editions where the low-level thief, you had to put certain amount every level. You got a certain percentage where you would put that you had 10% per level, so you'd put some of it in pickpocket, some of it in stealth, some of it in where you weren't able to be good at everything.
It would just make more varied players.
But the downside to that, though, was that, there are certain things, the thief should be okay at, stealth.
But isn't that where expertise comes in? That skill itself kind of helps you be good at the things that you should be good at.
Yeah.
And so, to me, I would think that expertise should be something that every character gets at 8th level, but it only affects the things that they are their class as a whole is proficient in. So if I as a wizard am good at Arcana and I'm trying to think of what all they're good at right off the top of my head. Arcana, why is Arcana so broad?
Oh, that's the thing. Yeah, that goes back to the whole problem though. Is Arcana is so broad. A wizard who is a abjurer, making an Arcana check versus a necromancy thing.
Right. Okay.
They're so different that.
Yeah, because one would be good at runes, the other one would be good at playing with bones. All right, so Arcana, History, Insight, Investigation, Medicine, or Religion. You get to choose 2, right? Mm-hmm. So at 8th level, everybody should get a expertise, but here's how I would word expertise. Anything that your class is proficient in, from what the player handbook says, you have... What is expertise? You have double your proficiency to roll in. So that would give you, hey, look, anybody that isn't as good as it at the beginning, well, over time you've kind of gotten better. So now at 8th level, this will also help the multi-classing thing where people just kind of like want to dip in and dip out. So now you have to be at 8th level before you get the ability to kind of like be better at it. So now when you're doing all these sub skill trees, so you put all your points into lock picking, well, now you get your proficiency bonus essentially, and now you get it added to both skills. So now where lock picking and pickpocketing are in that same little skill tree, where your lock picking is now 10, but your pickpocketing is now 4. So that would help out. And everybody gets expertise to make it to where they're good at what their class is. Is that fair, overpowered? What say ye?
I wouldn't have an issue with it if it was done. It's all in how many points they give you and how balanced it works out. One of the things I've noticed a lot, which hopefully, going back to things for 6th edition that I hope they do better, is that the higher level things get, the less they seem to actually pay attention to it and watch the balance and that kind of stuff.
I think it's because they don't expect, like, you can
because they don't expect things to go to 20th level. Yeah,
I'd like to see them make more charts for players and stuff to go past 20 level.
And I'd like the stuff that happens at those higher levels to be more scaled to those. If you look at some of the epic feats that they've listed, the epic boon is what you're getting now at 20th level in the play tests. Some of those epic boons aren't much better than a feat you can get at 4th level. Like one of them's like Misty Stepping once a day. Well, if you take the Fey Touched, you get that same Misty Step once a day plus, a +1 to Dex or something. I don't have it in front of me, but the Elven Ancestry one where they get there's one of them that gets a Misty Step.
Something else
at 4th level. So why would a 20th level feat be the same as a 4th level feat? That makes no sense, power-wise, scaling-wise.
So, and you said something, and it made me think of something else I'd like to see moving forward into D&D, both 5e and 6th edition into the next year. I want to see less of this, you can use this once a days. Like, everything should be based off your proficiency or your skill modifier. All right. Now you could probably have like a burn point system or something like that says, hey, look, you have 10 points of your feats that you can use a day. Something to kind of like count down or something. It's something different. But I can only use this once a day. And I get it. It's to keep players from kind of like going absolutely batshit nuts with all their stuff. Like, oh, well, I'm going to use Misty Step 6 times.
Yeah. If it's too powerful for you to use it multiple times a day, it's probably too powerful for you to give it to them.
Exactly. So I would rather see you do it like honestly like a feat point system or like a skill point system, something like that allows you to count down. So I have, it's my essentially your proficiency modifier. So I have 4 proficiency points of things that I'm good at that I can be that I can do with all these feats. So if I can Misty Step 4 times in a day, or I can Misty Step and Disguise Self, and then Misty Step again, and Misty Step and that's how I use it.
Yeah, and they've a lot of the stuff has been going to proficiency mod times per day. That way, you start at 2, by the 20th level, it's up to 6.
Because it feels bad to burn an ability early on in the day because you needed it, but then you're like, crap, now I got to sit here and wait, because then all it does is delay storytelling. So.
Yeah, and that's where you get the people doing, we did the first room of the dungeon, long rest. Second room of the dungeon, long rest.
Oh, man, I would love to see the end of that system. Like the short and long rest, like make mana potions or something in there that reset, like kind of like resets your things. Like we have health pots. Yeah. Why not do mana pots or something that like,
I do use them in my game.
The Not So Good Berry.
Yeah.
That's where it all started. So the Not So Good Berry, for those of you who are not listening, we got tired of having to delay everything because everybody was doing that. So we'd come in and it's like, oh, well, we're going to take a long rest after we fought these guys because it was a hard challenge. It should be challenging, all right? You're playing D&D to be challenged. It's a game. Games are challenging. So what I came up with and I started handing out to the players when they'd go off on adventures, like when we did Adventures Guild, was called the Not So Good Berry. And it's essentially the good berry, but it gave you the benefits of a short rest when you ate it. So that way, long rest. So long rests will give you a lot more unless you're like a warlock or certain classes, but a short rest kind of gave you back some of your basic features and let you reset some of your abilities, gave you a few spell slots, things to kind of keep the combat rolling. Yeah. And it's evolved over time, but the original idea was the not so good berry.
Yeah, in my campaign, I had a mana potion, which it would restore basically like the base level one would restore a first level spell slot.
Yeah,
and there were higher level, expert potions you could buy. It basically would just, because there were certain classes, especially like the cleric was one of them, where if you had a cleric in your party, you never took a short rest because they got no benefit from it.
Yeah.
But they were the ones you often needed to get their spell slots back the most because they're the ones that have been keeping your party alive and healing your,
I wouldn't be so mad like if they changed the way short rest and long rest were and that more classes got stuff off the short rest, but they need to make it to where like a short rest is distinctively different than the long rest other than the amount of time, because that's really what defines the two. I think a short rest is like, hey, look, if we're just kind of like walking at a casual pace for an hour, that can be like a short rest, versus a long rest is like, hey, look, we're sitting down, making camp, everybody's relaxing after a hard day's fought. Now we need to make it to where it's easy for everybody.
And they're getting much more specific. Actually, that's something else in the latest playtest that we never went over on this show. But
I mean, this is what we want to see moving forward.
In the latest playtest, they have gone and they are fine tuning things like the long rest and what's an interrupted long. Like you can only take one long rest per calendar day, versus you can take one long rest. You can't take another one for 16 hours or. Versus,
that's going to really mess with the way elves work, because elves don't really need them.
Well, elves, they still take their 4-hour trance, but they would have to still sit and not leave. And they went in and they're defining thing like casting a spell interrupts a long rest. Combat interrupts a long rest.
Wait, so casting a spell, like any spell, like what if it's like Mordecai's like, hide or something like that.
Well, that's before your long rest starts.
Okay, but what about conjure food and stuff like that?
Yeah, and the argument was that those things would, because
so there needs to be a difference between combat and non-combat spells.
The abuse that was happening was that people would wait till 7.5 hours into their long rest, and then they would do something like the Champion's Feast or one, where it's like a what is it, the 5th level spell that gives you all these day-long buffs that last all day, and then they'd finish their long rest, and that spell slot's back. I can go on,
Yeah, they just kind of need to, combat and non-combat spells need to be like a modifier to it. Like just add something like kind of like ritual and non-ritual spells.
Even little things like mage armor, though. You cast your 8-hour mage armor at the 7.5 hour mark. That means for the whole first 7 hours of your traveling, you've got mage armor on for free.
Yeah.
That's a warlock invocation. You'd think that would bother some people.
Yeah, it does bother me, but
free mage armor. Nobody should get free mage armor.
Oh yeah,
you
don't want. No, mage armor goes for everybody, but magical dark vision, that's a whole nother episode 17. Our D&D feats overpowered. Go back and look at it. It's like the last 30 minutes of the entire argument. But that's that's where it comes to. So I just want to see it just needs fixed. It really does. I want to see less of less issues that are revolving around restoring on the long rest, but we need to better define what they are. Not only do we need to better define what they are, make some spells combat or non-combat. Hey, this one incites combat. This one does not, it's very easy to add 10 words to the end of a spell saying using this spell.
And that's one thing in all 3 of the play tests, the long rest rules are different.
Yeah, because they're trying to
they're trying to tweak it. They have like the one where like the 16-hour, like you can't take another long rest for 16 hours. Well, what happens then is your long rest winds up shifting. Like if you get interrupted and then you wait and then you can't take another. So that has some issues. And the one long rest per 24 hours. Well, I took one at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and then I took another one at midnight. So they're 2 separate days.
I think it should be in a matter of 24 hours. So
Right.
I think that would help out.
Yeah, so they are working. They've not tweaked it perfect. It's not perfect. Like in the most recent one, like if you're interrupted, you still get the benefits of a short rest, and you can for every hour that you were interrupted, you can long rest that much longer to still get the long rest.
That seems like we're like it needs to be simple, but yet it's still also I can see their challenge, and I give them that.
Yeah, so that I will give Wizards credit. They're working on it. Haven't got it perfect yet, but
It's been a dumb system, and I'd like to see that's something in this new year that I'd like to see changed is the fact that I don't want to see any more of stopping a whole dungeon, like having to find like the fact that you're in the middle of a dungeon and you're like, well, we're just going to stop right here and have an entire rest. No, you're not. All right, me as a DM, I would probably have to sit there and make that complicated for you. Oh, well, we're going to cast Mordecai's Mansion or something. It's like, come on. All right. Make that to where it burns something. Like it's got to be difficult because the fact that you can just stop. And granted, sometimes we stop mid session to say, hey, this is the end for the night. That's one thing, coming back. We've talked about this in the past. I think you should have to carry over, but you say, hey, look, it's just a little too complicated for them. And and I understand your argument, but that's a different scenario versus, hey, look, we just got our asses handed to us in this combat instead of leaving the dungeon altogether to come back at a better time, better prepared. It's just like a video game. You don't just sit there and fight your way through it and crap. I've tried fighting this thing 3 times, died every time to it.
I think it's also the video game influence may also be what's causing it. People are used to having a save point where they just they'll go to that campfire, hit that save point, and then everything's healed and good, and then they can just continue on the dungeon.
I think it should be hard, man. Yeah, it's a game. I tell you some video game influence that I'd like to see moving forward into D&D in the new year. I want to see a threat system. I want to see certain classes that have better taunts, better provokes, better anything that says, hey, look, fight me, to kind of better define what a tank is. Now, obviously we know the Holy Trinity is not in the book by any standards, and the Holy Trinity being melee, DPS, healer. I'd like to see something that gives certain subspecs, like the champion fighter should be, as it is, the second best tank after the barbarian. Yeah. So that you get the champion fighter that I don't think so. The champion fighter that when he goes in, that he actually does his attacks generate some sort of threat, something that brings attention to him a little bit more, to where people are more inclined to fight him. All right. If the champion fighter makes it a successful attack on an enemy, that enemy is more likely to attack said fighter if nobody else is, especially even if other people are within range. Yeah. Something simple like that could, needs obviously the wizard's touch to go in there and rework it. Because I think a threat system kind of would help out, because then you have these times where you come up in and you get a monk that comes in behind the fighter. He's making some attacks, and his attacks may not even do near as much damage, but all of a sudden the enemy turns around and is like, yeah, I'm going to beat your ass now. It just makes no sense. He was fighting the fighter who's done more damage to him, has had more attention to him, and then somebody comes up and hits him once from the side. He's like, oh yeah, turn around, hit that guy. Now you as a DM, I'll give you that. You're a little bit more gratuitous for those tank style players, that you try to focus on them a little bit more. But there are other DMs out there that are not like that. They will just turn and fight. I want to see taunts, provokes, anything that kind of just says, hey, look at me. Yeah. All right, and it has to be a roll or something. The smart strategy stuff, that a lot of that has to do with the DM.
But there's not a lot of help for the DMs, especially if you've never played a game of chess or strategy type games, to take advantage of the flanking, especially a new DM who's never played. There's DMs out there who picked up the book, learned to play from the book, and are DMing for their friends who've also never played. For them to expect them to know off just because that it makes more sense to go after the higher damage deal, or whatever. There should be some of that help in the DM's guide, which is not in there as far as combat tactics. And
it would be something like even the DMs could have. They could have characters that when they attack, it causes the same amount of threat that everybody kind of has to focus on. Like it's like a battle yell. All right, everybody in this attack, you are now kind of forced to focus on him. Now you can get like a roll to kind of to avoid that, but if you fail the roll for the next turn, you all have to attack this one target.
Right.
So it's going to kind of like suck if you're, let's say, magic immune and you're a wizard, but you fell for the taunt. So now you have to attack this thing that does no damage. It sucks for you, but it kind of helps balance out to give the DMs a chance. You as a DM, when you're creating your party, would also have the same advantages that the players do. If a warrior comes in and does like a battle, we're just going to call it a battle shout, and everybody is supposed to focus on the fighter. So this fighter now has you have like 6 characters out there. Like, all right, cool. These 2 characters, they passed the save, so now we don't have to attack you. So they can kind of intermittently attack anybody they want. Within reason. I still don't. I've never liked the DM that's like, oh, I've been fighting this thing for like the last few rounds, which is like 30 seconds in game time, but you turn to the left all of a sudden when somebody else shows up and just like take a bite out of it. It doesn't make sense because that to me would cause like a reaction, like an attack of opportunity. If you literally turn to go fight something else that says, hey, look, you're fighting there, I'm going to take an attack of opportunity. Yeah,
the mechanics for flanking should apply more to, guys getting double teamed, guys getting there's some mechanic stuff also that needs some work when it comes to multiple opponents fighting a single target. That some of it just doesn't make sense. Like if you're within that 1 5-foot square distance range, doesn't matter that you're behind him. You get the same roll as attacking the guy in front of you. Attacking the guy backstabbing you from behind or attacking the guy in front of you is the same. It's the same. They both have advantage on you. You have the same straight roll on both of them. Whereas you would think the guy behind you would be disadvantaged, and the guy in front of you, maybe he's, I don't know if you give him advantage because he's.
Yeah, I think advantage is like something like terrible to honestly give players.
Yeah.
Like there's got to be better. Like having double the attack roll just kind of like is like yay, I guess. But it should be. I'm with you on that. The flanking, like maybe bonus to your damage or something like that, or something. But like from the sides, if you're attacking somebody and you're attacking them from both sides, maybe that's bonus to damage. All right, but you have to have somebody on the other side. Here's how we'll do this. And but flanking doesn't count from front to back. All right, it has to be from side. It actually has to be from the flank. All right, if you have somebody at the front,
what else I'd like? This just brought up that.
Go for it.
Else I'd like to see. Team maneuvers.
Oh, that would be cool too.
Like you have the one, you're in flanking position. You have the one guy behind him kneel down, and the other guy pushes him. He falls over. Yeah. Team maneuvers.
Yeah, like the fastball special and stuff. Like that'd be cool.
Yeah, the Battle Master. I suspect in 6th edition, because the way they're reducing the number of subclasses.
You see my terrible drawing?
No.
Can you see it right here?
Okay, yeah.
All right, so we'll go back to your Battle Master stuff. Like, I just wanted to try. All right, so obviously the arrow is facing the forward of the enemy, okay?
Yeah.
So
you
flanking.
Realize none of the listeners can see your drawing.
I get that nobody can see the drawing. All right? I'm explaining this to you so that way it'll help out and you can help me explain it. All right, so obviously the arrow is facing, let's say that's just the barbarian, okay? Mm-hmm. So now, to flank, you can be on either side, and you can flank with the guy in the front. All right, but the back guy is not considered flanking because that's not a flank. It's technically a flank, but it's more like a backstab. Yeah. So this is not flanking. The opportunity you would get from these two would be different than the guy here in the back.
Yeah, in real world terms, 2 guys one on either side of you versus a guy in front and a guy in back would have different effect on the combat than each other. Whereas in D&D terms, they're all just flanking and it doesn't matter.
Yeah. So it would be something to add. It kind of goes back to those martial weapons and stuff like that, adding to it to make it.
If you go into the battle master maneuvers, where maybe you've got a maneuver that's the sweep the leg or the man can't stand, he can't fight.
I think. I'm with you on that. I'd like to see more, not even just battle master maneuvers, but I'd like to see combos between the classes.
Yeah.
Like if a sorcerer and a mage get together, they can make one hell of a cool new spell. Like it's something within like reason. Like I think that's like a 20th level feature. Like you can create like the ultimate firestorm or something where it's the wizard casts like hurricane, but the draconic sorcerer casts like a fire breath into it. Like that would be dope.
Even if you enhance, you take a spell that is enhance allies spell, or something that gives you give a +1 to the saving against saving for the next ally to cast a spell, or what something that enhances your allies' efforts for more support type magic.
No, that would be really dope.
Yeah, that would work. But I suspect, like I was getting with the Battle Master, I suspect a lot of the Battle Master feats are going to become more general. I don't know if they'll even continue the Battle Master. I suspect they're going to take all those feats and spread them to all fighters,
making the fighter still the number 2,
making the fighter more interesting.
Yeah, it does need to be more interesting.
Where, like for example, if you had a champion fighter who gets all the features of a champion fighter, but could also do 2 or 3 maneuvers, that would be a much better fight, and then because that would also keep them because they're giving fighting styles to people like the Ranger, and I'm sure they'll give them to the Paladin as well.
Yeah.
So this would keep something unique for the fighter, and it would make sense that the fighter who's trained their whole life to be nothing but a fighter would have fighting moves.
Gonna catch these hands.
Yeah, and you don't need a lot of them, 2 or 3. If they keep the Battle Master, give him twice as many, or I don't know.
Yeah.
But I think that would be the best thing they could do. And then, like I said, you change the way weapons work so that you're just not looking at just the dice damage, but where the damage type matters. I miss weapon speed, for example.
Weapon speed would be cool, but I think...
But because a dagger in old editions had such a low weapon speed that you were always going first if you're using a dagger, whereas a big two-handed weapon was slower, so you would be later in the initiative order if you're using the big heavy weapon.
Yeah, but I don't know.
Was there like initiative modifiers on the weapon?
Yeah,
that's what it was.
Weapon speed, like a dagger would have a weapon speed of a 2, and a two-handed weapon would have a 10. So if you rolled your initiative as a 10, well, you would go, if you're using a dagger, you'd go at 8, whereas if you were using a two-handed sword, you'd go at 0. And then spells all had casting times as well, where instead of being one action,
the spell casting time I'd be
a level 1 spell had a casting time of say a 1, and a level 9 spell had a casting time of a 9, or so they would shift in order depending.
Yeah, but that requires more of a shift on every round.
And that's where it got it. That's I think why they got rid of it, was because every round your initiative, like you couldn't just roll one initiative at the beginning of the round, at the beginning of the fight, and stay at that position all fight, because as soon as you switched weapons,
you're moving.
Yeah. So to me, I wouldn't mind. I agree with the casting time. The weapon speed I think is a little much, but it's to streamline combat.
There should be benefits to using different. Like there should be a difference between using a club and a nunchuck.
Yes,
there should be, and
we've already talked about this.
And that difference shouldn't just be. They may both be a D6, and they may both be bludgeoning, but there should be some other advantage or disadvantage that makes you choose one or the other. And maybe like I said, the nunchuck's faster than the club. Maybe the club is lighter, or I don't know. But there should be something that makes you choose between them.
It's something he'd like to see in the future of D&D. Well, it's been a good episode, my friends. I appreciate you guys hanging out with us. Make sure you guys go find us on Facebook, all right? Chef Bolg, ChefBolggg, and the Pirate Captain, PirateCaptain. Did I spell it that way or did I spell it the old school way? Who knows? Go find us on Facebook. If you type in Chef Bolg, you'll find us immediately. He is pretty much the face of this whole thing because I am ugly as sin.
Yeah, and Bolg is a much easier. Bolgg is a very unique word. You put that in Google, you'll probably find something related to us.
So it's you can email us with all your questions, comments, gripes, concerns, complaints, and mutiny requests. I do love that addition to it. At bolgandpc@gmail.com. Give us a like, a subscribe, a follow, share us with your friends, share us with your enemies. Make people that you don't like listen to us because that's what I would do too. That's actually what I do right now. I make all my family members listen to it. But with that being said, say goodbye, Loc.
See ya.
See ya. Goodbye, Mr. Producer.
Catch you guys later.
Bye, guys.
You've been listening to Chef Bolg and the Pirate Captain's Recipes for Everything, featuring Loc the Bard. Like, follow, subscribe, and share this podcast. You can also find them on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Just search for Chef Bolg and the Pirate Captain's Recipes for Everything. Questions, comments, and mutiny requests can be sent to bolgandpc@gmail.com. And as always, happy adventures.